Hi, I'm Garrett Kasper from SAIC, and we're thrilled to be here today at the Avenza Maps User Conference. Today I'll be discussing rugged apps. We'll go over some of the history of our program and how it grew from a small program inside NGA, the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency, to what it is today. And we'll talk about the cybersecurity arena. I'm sure there's a lot of information in there that you already do know, but it bears repeating. And from there, we'll talk about the product and give you some contact information. And then once this video presentation is over, we'll be available for live Q&A at the end. So with that, let's get started. I'm going to go full screen right now, so this way you can see our slides, and I'll be right back towards the end of the brief. So in terms of cybersecurity, we're literally living in unprecedented times. Our adversaries are becoming more aggressive than ever, and they're advancing their techniques and capabilities at just an absolutely incomprehensible rate. To give you an idea of the cost of damage from cyber attacks, just last year alone, that was $6 trillion. Now to put that in perspective, the United States and China have the biggest economies in the world, but a $6 trillion haul would make that the third largest economy in the world. And that's just the beginning. They're growing at a rate of about 15% per year, and experts predict that cybersecurity damages could hit $10.5 trillion per year by 2025. So while cyber attacks are becoming more frequent for a lot of the big companies, and we heard Colonial Pipeline and many hospital chains, food processing facilities, the military, it's not just the big targets that are the primary targets of these hackers. It's actually smaller businesses. 43% of them, in fact, were attacked last year, and only 14% of those claimed to be able to properly defend themselves. So this becomes a huge problem for larger companies or governments or the military who hire smaller subcontractors. The hackers have found that an effective way to swim upstream is actually attack the smaller, more vulnerable fish. Last year, the Log4j vulnerability was a hot topic towards the fourth quarter. There was a really big uptick in attacks at that part of the year, and the second largest targeted group was government and military organizations. They were getting about 1,100 cyber attack attempts per week. That was a 47% increase since 2020. And it goes without saying, but with the tragic events unfolding in Ukraine, we've suddenly had to become hyper-vigilant against cyber attacks by Russia and other bad actors. Now, if you notice in the center of the screen, the White House issued an executive order to beef up America's cybersecurity. This is now a very, very big issue. And last year in May, that order came out, and this year in March, so almost an entire year later, the Office of Management and Budget, OMB, hosted a public workshop with NIST to get some feedback and best practices and start a full court press on this executive order. So a lot of talk. We're starting to see some action, but what's really fascinating here is this is exactly what SAIC has been doing for many, many years now. We started in 2015 working with the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency on IGAP. So some of you may be familiar with that program. And it wasn't just a one-trick pony. We had hundreds of apps, we had tens of thousands of users, and many companies, including Avenza Maps. Now, late last year, NGA decided that they wanted to end IGAP at their discretion, and that's okay. However, SAIC had the resources available. We invested in all of these proprietary scanning systems. We have the talent, we have the cybersecurity experts. So rather than fold, we decided to commercialize it. So IGAP, late last year, became Rugged Apps, and it's now commercially available. In fact, we even trademarked the name. So what do? In short, we bridge the app gap. So if you look on the left-hand side, these are the app developers, right? Swift, Agile, small businesses, maybe not terribly familiar with the government customer, but they also may use some open source code on some of their products, which need to be scrubbed. And on the other side, we've got the government customers who have a very, very large demand signal by their members for popular and familiar commercial apps. They also have very strict security requirements, and contracting with the government can be a challenge, just to put it mildly. They also may have made their own code, and we can help them scan that and make sure it's secure. But somewhere in the middle on this bridge is the member, right? It's the civilian worker, it's the military member, it's the person downrange at the tip of the spear who needs to use the app. And so you look at the shield here, and you'll see this again later, but we want to make sure that we are the bridge between the vendors and the government customers to provide high quality, secure apps so that everybody is safe. So we can cover a broad range of apps covering aviation, maritime, battle space management, situational awareness, obviously geointelligence, secure communications, even disaster relief, just to name a few. There's all kinds of apps. If there's a need for an app, we can help the government customer find vendors who can develop that particular app. We have really amazing security features. We've got a proprietary stack of software scanning tools that we can use. We will help the vendor find, and we're not going to necessarily fix it for them, but we'll help them find where their issues may reside, so that once their final product is put in the store, we know that it is absolutely safe, secure, and ruggedized. And then finally, I'll touch on the speed at which we can work. This is really important to the government customer. We've seen that they have software that needs to be scanned. Sometimes it takes them months, if not years, to push it out to the field, and they don't have that kind of time. So this is a great opportunity for us to be able to scan it more efficiently and get it out to the users. One thing that's really important to note with rugged apps is the fact that we're going to start with source code. So if you're going to work with us, please know that that's going to be an expectation. But we'll do the analysis on it. We will find out if there are any critical findings, any high urgency findings, anything less than that, and we will help the vendor understand what needs to get fixed. And that way they can come back, do their work, and scan it again. And once we know that there is a final executable code that is secure and gets the rugged apps shield of approval, we'll provide that body of evidence to the CISO. And there's two primary things that we do here with rugged apps. One on the vendor side and the government customer side is to make sure that the apps get through our store and get sold effectively, efficiently, and we have that great relationship with the customer, with the end customer, the government users. The other piece is outside of apps is software scanning, and that's really available to the government customer only. We will use virtually the same approach to testing, but in this case, the government will control the supply chain and give us their code, and we will scan it, and we will give it back to them and tell them where they have some areas of concern. And the way this works is pretty simple. It's just like going to Kinko's. Every time you make a scan, you pay the bill, and if you have enough scans, we can give a quantity discount. So here's a great example of what Avenza Maps has done in their marketing department. We absolutely love working with them for this reason. And if you recall from the Bridging the App Gap slide, there was that shield, and now Avenza Maps has been able to proudly display it on their icon to let the government customer know that this is a ruggedized version of Avenza maps. This is really important for the customer to see firsthand so that they know that they're protected. And we really, really enjoy the marketing campaign. In fact, we use this as an example for many other vendors who want to work with us, that this is a perfect example of how to do marketing and let the customer understand that this isn't just the regular version of the app. This is the Rugged Apps version of it. So here's our point of contact, John Holcomb, who is our program manager. His contact information is here if you want to jot it down. His email is there. Additionally, you can reach us at ruggedapps@saic.com, and our website is there as well. And so now, kind of on a personal note, one thing I want to touch on is the fact that, as you can see behind me, I've got some jets. I am a military member. I've served for 26 years, both about 12 or 13 years on active duty, and the rest in the reserves. And, as a senior officer, I would never send my sailors downrange without the proper training, the proper gear. I want to make sure they're safe. It's my responsibility to do that. And across the industry, in the defense industry, it's our job to give them the best hardware, the best sensors. We want them to not just have a comfortable, decisive overmatch. We want them to have really, really, really decisive overmatch. So that comes with all of that hardware. But what good is it if the software is vulnerable, right? The soldier, sailor, marine, the airman, the Coast Guardsman, the civilian contractor, anybody out in the field with their cell phone is vulnerable if they're not properly protected, right? If they're using apps where the bad guys can slip in through the back door, all the best hardware in the world isn't going to matter if the enemy we can't see is already there. So that's why I'm so passionate about this program. Rugged Apps is absolutely fantastic. We're really proud to bring it to market, and we look forward to working with you all in the future. Thanks very much for your time today, and let's take some questions. Thanks.